Ferrus Manus, like all the other Primarchs, was cast across the galaxy by the Chaos Gods during his infancy. He landed on the harsh and unyielding planet of Medusa, a world dominated by extreme weather, jagged landscapes, and isolated clans constantly at war. Rather than seeking comfort or companionship, Ferrus chose to forge himself in solitude, using the environment's challenges to hone his strength and resolve. He wandered the planet, testing himself against nature's brutality and earning a reputation as a force of unstoppable power. It was during these early years on Medusa that Ferrus encountered the Great Worm, Azernoth, a colossal, biomechanical creature impervious to harm. Driven by determination and rage, Ferrus pursued the beast across the treacherous terrain, until he lured it into a pool of molten lava. In a brutal battle of endurance and strength, he led the creature under the magma until it perished. As it died, the worm's liquid metal necrodermis fused with Ferrus's hands, turning them into living iron. This transformation gave Ferrus the metallic hands that would become his symbol, but to him, it was a reminder of his flaws and the corruption of his natural state. Ferrus did not view the silver as a gift, but rather as a stain upon his purity, a constant emblem of the struggle between his humanity and his relentless pursuit of power. Despite his disdain, the people of Medusa revered him, and the many warring clans began to worship the Gorgon, who emerged from the wilderness with hands of living metal. When the Emperor eventually arrived on Medusa, the meeting was not of peace. Ferrus, ever defiant, challenged the Emperor to a battle that shook the very mountains. The Emperor, impressed by Ferrus's indomitable spirit and strength, did not subjugate him, but offered him command of the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands. Thus, Ferrus Manus took his place among his brothers, and the Great Crusade began in earnest, with the Iron Hands earning a reputation for ruthless efficiency and unyielding strength. Ferrus Manus, now commander of the 10th Legion, forged an immediate bond with Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's children. Fulgrim was the embodiment of perfection, an artist and craftsman whose creations were as beautiful as they were deadly. Ferrus, in contrast, was a brutal pragmatist who cared nothing for beauty and sought only strength and utility. Despite these differences, the two shared a mutual respect and admiration for each other's craftsmanship, which solidified their friendship. Their bond was cemented during a legendary challenge in which both Primarchs competed to create the greatest weapon. Fulgrim fashioned a mighty Warhammer named Forgebreaker, capable of shattering mountains, while Ferrus forged the exquisite blade Fireblade, a sword that burned with the fire of the forge. When they saw each other's work, both Primarchs declared the other's creation superior. As a sign of their eternal brotherhood, they exchanged weapons, Ferrus taking Forgebreaker and Fulgrim wielding Fireblade. Yet, beneath this bond of brotherhood, there were seeds of conflict. Ferrus could never understand Fulgrim's obsession with beauty and saw it as a distraction from their true purpose, the conquest and unification of the galaxy. Fulgrim, on the other hand, was secretly envious of Ferrus's unbreakable will and viewed his own pursuit of perfection as a way to prove himself. This rivalry, unspoken but ever-present, simmered beneath the surface, setting the stage for tragedy when Fulgrim began to fall under the influence of chaos. As the Horus Heresy approached, Fulgrim, now a thrall to darker powers, attempted to sway Ferrus to Horus's cause. He came to his brother with words of seduction, promising power and glory if Ferrus joined the rebellion. But Ferrus, ever loyal to the Emperor, would not hear it. Enraged by his betrayal, he attacked Fulgrim, shattering Fireblade in the duel that followed. Fulgrim escaped, taking Forgebreaker with him, and left Ferrus unconscious and humiliated. This confrontation would mark the end of their friendship and the beginning of a bitter, bloody rivalry. When the Horus Heresy erupted, Ferrus Manus was one of the first to answer the Emperor's call to confront the traitors. Gathering the Iron Hands, he set out for Isvan V alongside the Salamanders and Ravenguard legions. The three legions formed the vanguard of the assault, determined to put an end to Horus's rebellion. But unknown to Ferrus, The second wave of reinforcements, the Night Lords, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and Word Bearers, had already turned traitor and were preparing to betray the Loyalists. As Ferrus led the charge into the Orgal Depression, the trap was sprung. The Loyalists were caught between the hammer of Horus's forces and the anvil of the second wave. The Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard were surrounded and systematically annihilated. Ferrus, in his fury and determination, pushed through the enemy lines, driven by a singular purpose: to confront Fulgrim and end the treachery once and for all. Ferrus believed that if he could defeat his wayward brother, he could turn the tide of battle. When the two brothers finally met on the battlefield, the confrontation was not just a clash of warriors, but a duel of philosophies. Ferrus, wielding a reforged fireblade, the very sword he had once gifted Fulgrim in friendship, faced off against his brother, who now wielded Forgebreaker, the warhammer Ferrus had crafted for him as a token of their bond. This symbolic reversal of roles underscored the tragedy of their confrontation. Weapons once crafted in brotherhood were now wielded against one another. Fulgrim initially used Forgebreaker in their clash, a sign of their broken bond. However, as the battle raged and Fulgrim began to lose his advantage, he was disarmed of Forgebreaker and, in desperation, turned to a darker weapon, the Blade of the Lair. The blade, a demonic sword tainted by the Chaos god Slaanesh, was far more than a weapon. It was a symbol of Fulgrim's fall, a cursed blade that whispered dark promises and urged its wielder toward greater acts of depravity. As Ferrus fought valiantly, the sword's corrupting influence took hold out of Fulgrim. Fulgrim's hesitation was fleeting, as the demon within the blade twisted his mind, filling him with unnatural strength and bloodlust. With a final, merciless swing, Fulgrim decapitated Ferrus Manus, severing his brother's head from his shoulders in a single strike. Fulgrim's soul shattered in that instant as he realized the enormity of what he had done. Any hope of redemption for Fulgrim was lost, as the demon's influence took full control over him. The death of Ferrus Manus marked the end of the battle. His headless corpse lay abandoned on the battlefield as his sons, the Iron Hands, were slaughtered around him. Those few who survived were left broken and leaderless, their spirit crushed along with the death of their Primarch. Fulgrim, consumed by grief and horror at the act, would later present Ferrus' severed head and Forgebreaker to Horus as a token of loyalty. Thus, the closest bond between two Primarchs ended in blood and betrayal, forever scarring the Iron Hands and sealing Fulgrim's tragic fate. The death of Ferrus Manus at Isvan V shattered the Iron Hands, leaving them broken and leaderless. In the wake of this catastrophe, the Legion splintered into scattered warbands, each struggling to uphold their Primarch's ideals. This absence led to the gradual corruption of Ferrus' teachings. What was once a philosophy of overcoming internal flaws was twisted into an obsession with eradicating physical weakness. The Iron Hands embraced extreme augmentation, believing that Ferrus' call to strengthen the flesh meant replacing it entirely with machinery. Over time, his words, "the flesh is weak," became a distorted rallying cry for the whole-scale rejection of organic humanity. However, Ferrus' Manus spirit did not entirely vanish from the galaxy. During the war within the Webway, when the Emperor himself led a desperate counterattack against the demonic forces, Ferrus Manus reappeared. Faced with overwhelming odds, the Emperor drew upon the souls of loyalist heroes who had fallen in battle. Manifesting as a blazing spectre, Ferrus fought alongside his father once more. His presence rallied the Imperial defenders and sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks. Ferrus' form, wreathed in ethereal flames, was a symbol of enduring loyalty, his spirit a beacon of defiance against chaos. Ferrus' manifestation was not just a show of force, but a reminder to the Imperium that the true strength lay not in the rejection of humanity, but in the purity of purpose. As he and the spectral warriors pushed back the demonic legions, the Emperor was able to momentarily stabilize the crumbling Webway gate. Though the effort cost him dearly, this brief resurgence of loyalist souls allowed the Emperor forces to regroup and hold the line, giving them precious time to seal the breach and prevent a full-scale invasion of Terra. Ferrus's return in this battle was a testament to his unwavering commitment, even in death. Later, during the final days of the Siege of Terra, Ferrus Manus appeared once more, this time before his brother Sanguinius, aboard the Vengeful Spirit. Ferrus's ghostly form was a twisted mockery, summoned by the powers of chaos to torment the angel. Horus had brought Ferrus back as a weapon of psychological warfare, showing Sanguinius what became of the Emperor's most stalwart sons. But Ferrus did not succumb to the corruption. Instead, he used his brief appearance to warn Sanguinius of the treachery awaiting him in Horus's inner sanctum. This final act of defiance against the War Master was Ferrus's way of honoring his oaths, even as a spirit bound to the enemy's will. The tragic irony is that the Iron Hands, blinded by their own misinterpretations, failed to understand the deeper meaning of the Primarch's actions. His appearances in the Webway and aboard the Vengeful Spirit were not expressions of physical strength, but of unbreakable will and loyalty to the Emperor. Yet, his sons continued to embrace the path of machine over man, believing that Ferrus's words justified their relentless self-modification. Thus, the legacy of Ferrus Manus remains one of profound misunderstanding, his legion seeking strength through iron, while his spirit embodied the strength of an unyielding heart.